Well, hello, everyone. Today's session is being recorded to share with those that are not able to join us live today. So I thank you for being here. Mom Congress welcomes you. We are the U.S. Mothers' Rights Organization comprised of member advocates addressing the most pressing policy issues of parenting in the United States. We're thrilled to be a movement where advocates can use their voices throughout the year. And we're also excited that we are planning another moment to gather in DC this May, bringing our collective voices back to the Hill. We will share more on that exciting news later. My name is Crystal Mccauley. I am the Acting Community Director for Mom Congress. I'm thrilled to be here today alongside our longstanding partner, Every Mother Counts, and one of our adored Mom Congress caucus leaders, Tamika Isaac. Hi, Tamika.
Hi.
I asked Tamika to come here today, not only to give a great introduction for Every Mother Counts, but also because I know that she has the most awesome, unique experience having been able to advocate alongside the Every Mother Counts team at Mom Congress in 2019. So Tamika, we would love to hear you share and inspire the other advocates that have joined us here today and beyond. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me, guys. I always love connecting with you people, you beautiful, gorgeous people. I'm Tamika Isaac. As Crystal said, I am in North Carolina, born and raised. I came into advocacy out of a personal experience I had in 2018. My first experience with anything Congress, anything politics was actually Mom Congress in 2019. So if you're new to this and you're not really sure, you should come, you should have a great time because it changed my life. I've never been one to want to be in politics. I was so welcomed and everybody's so loving and the information is poured into you and you're not alone. And the important thing is that everybody's voice, everybody's story is so important and can impact so much change. In 2019, I was lucky enough to actually walk side by side with Nan, who is going to be speaking in a few minutes. And like it was an amazing experience. I wouldn't have traded it for anything. I'm so blessed to have been a part of that and to continue to be a part of Mom Congress and Mama's Voices and all things advocacy. And I don't know if anybody has seen the toolkit, but if you didn't want to be an advocate before and you look at this toolkit, you're going to want to be an advocate now. So without further ado, I will introduce Nan. Nan is from Every Mother Counts. She's an amazing person. I was so glad to be able to meet her and walk beside her and Christy in 2019 on Capitol Hill. She's the managing director and for policy advocacy and grant making at Every Mother Counts. So I'm done. Here you are, Nan. A pleasure to see your face again.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you're good. You have the floor. It's all yours.
Thank you so much. So good to see you again as well. And I love hearing that story from your perspective. And it is just such a pleasure. Thank you to Mom Congress. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Tamika, for having us here today to speak with this group. I think there's so much synergy between what you just said and between the organizations. Maybe go to the next slide, please. Because Yuki's doing it. All right, great. Because when you're talking about your own journey from your own experience to advocacy, that really is what our organization is also all about. Our Every Mother Counts was founded to build on a film that our founder, Christy Turlington Burns, made, No Woman, No Cry. And her advocacy, her work in this area of maternal health all stems from the fact that when she had her first child, she had a postpartum hemorrhage and was really struck by the fact that if she hadn't had the care team around her that she was fortunate enough to have, that she may not be here today. And so she translated that personal experience into her mission And the mission of the organization to make pregnancy and childbirth safe for every mother everywhere. And we do that by working to achieve quality, respectful, and equitable maternity care for all. And she moved from that personal to the bigger picture, using that personal experience as a jumping off point. So just to talk a little bit about the background of Every Mother Counts before jumping into the toolkit, we have really focused the mission by thinking about what our unifying principles are, what underlies all of the work that we do. And so it starts with placing mothers at the center. And whether that is using storytelling to make clear and elevate the impact of these issues, the importance of these issues, whether it's the way that we focus on listening to people and providing person-centered care, and also creating tools like the toolkit for individuals to use to bring power, put power behind their individual experiences. We also work with a focus on advancing proven evidence-based models of care, facilitating access to resources and care in underserved communities, communities facing the worst outcomes or worst experiences of care are often those that need the most have the most to gain from improvements in the system, and where there really are gaps that need to be filled with tools and resources in a way that makes that addresses equity. Then growing, strengthening, and diversifying the healthcare workforce, and also underlying all of those other principles, the way that we approach them and all of our work is our priority of promoting human rights, equity, and birth justice. Do you want to go to the next slide? Thank you. So we have 4 strands of the work that we do. We put our mission into action using these 4 strategies. We expand the public awareness through education and storytelling, whether it's about preventing maternal deaths, complications, disparities, and solutions that have been proven to work in advancing maternal health and birth equity. And we do this public education in different ways, through storytelling, through filmmaking, through research and report writing, where we're creating resources that build knowledge around the challenges that people face, but also the opportunities in maternal health. And we share community members' lived experiences. So we really try to balance those challenges, but also what is already working well? What can we lift up to show the opportunities for change? The second strand of our work is investing in people and programs who are working to improve access to quality, respectful, and equitable maternity care, especially those working in underserved and marginalized communities, whether that's in the US or around the globe. We've been able to, through our many years of work in this area, develop close, lasting, and supportive relationships with our partners, where we really trust our community-based partners to lead the solutions, and where we work to elevate the profile of the work that they are doing on the ground, supporting their efforts to grow and expanding their capacity and generally serving as a resource. We also work to foster innovative and transformative projects through strategic initiatives and partnerships. We work on initiatives that are catalytic, multidimensional, and collaborative, and that really focus on bridging and building upon the core work that we've been doing, creating synergy through collaboration with strategic partners, and focusing on initiatives that hold the potential for transformational and measurable impact across the healthcare system. And we also work, as we're here to discuss, to make system change through policy and advocacy. We at Every Mother Counts do this by engaging as thought partners, employing our expertise and relationships to collaborate with key decision makers, with policymakers, influencers, practitioners, and community members in order to help identify priorities, but also to implement effective strategies for change, all while thinking about how do we motivate communities to move from knowledge to action and to take advantage of different strategies, whether it's legislation, policy change at all levels. So online actions, local activities, something as simple as speaking with care providers at a hospital, hosting a screening of a film in your community. And we're so excited to share this work today as part of the Advocacy Toolkit. I just want to give one more piece of history before I turn it over to my colleague Yuki. So this toolkit has really grown out of a number of different steps along the way. You know, I started doing advocacy workshops some years ago. And from those early workshops, I did a couple of workshops within our own organization. And then Joy, your very own, and I did a joint workshop at the first Mama's Voices conference. And so Joy, I'm sure, sees so much of this content is recognizable and was really contributed by 2020 Mom. The original, one of the stages of the presentation had 2020 Mom right alongside Every Mother Counts. And so I have to give a shout out to all of the work that she has contributed along the way as well. So with that, I will also say that the work has now taken on a whole new life with Yuki's input and leadership and really bringing it to the next level. So we're thrilled to be able to share this with you today. We do hope that it will be a really pragmatic tool that can serve as a jumping off point and just give guidance to all of the exciting opportunities that you have in your own communities to advance this work in a personalized way. So take it away, Yuki.
Thank you so much, Nan. And I'm so excited to be with you all today and to be sharing this resource with this wonderful group. I'm excited to talk a little bit more about EMC's work in maternal health advocacy and flesh that out a little bit, as well as share our advocacy toolkit and a little bit of the what is in it already, and how you can build on that work as you are all already incredible advocates and activists yourself. So I want this to be a roadmap and something in your toolbox. And I'm also recognizing how much expertise and wisdom is in this Zoom room. I've peppered in some opportunities for some interaction in the Zoom chat to really bring your experience and your wisdom into this talk today. So I'm hoping that this toolkit and the presentation can really reinforce and support all of the advocacy that you have already been taking on and inspire and hopefully reinvigorate you all as we're entering this new year. So I wanted to start off today building on Nan's background on how EMC does our work, as well as our policy and advocacy work, by sharing a little bit of background on what we do around advocacy to advance maternal health policies. So we work to mobilize for structural change through policy and advocacy and facilitate connections to make sure community members and our community-based partners are setting the maternal health agenda and leading this systems change work. We focus on advancing policies that improve maternal health outcomes, increase health equity, and hold health systems, institutions, companies, and the government accountable to the individuals, families, and communities that they are set out to serve. EMC advocates for policies rooted in birth justice and evidence, while ensuring that the most representative voices are not just at the table, but leading these conversations and leading this charge. In order to do this, we work through sort of three main strategies that utilize both top-down and bottom-up approaches. So first, as Nan had mentioned, we work to build awareness of the issues around maternal health, as well as the evidence-based policy solutions that we know can make a difference for birthing people and their families. We do this through storytelling, as well as by translating evidence into resources for health professionals and policymakers through publishing of studies, surveys, analyses, and the reporting of insights, and being able to translate these insights to ways in which they're digestible and accessible as well. Additionally, we share our maternal health policy expertise directly with decision makers as a thought partner and an advisor, shaping legislation, promoting evidence, and providing that background, connecting community members when we can to decision makers to speak and influence directly, and sharing policy related technical assistance to policymakers, state agencies, and our partner organizations. And then our third strategy in our policy and advocacy work is to support individuals in becoming change agents for the issues that matter most to them themselves by mobilizing communities to take action through their own engagement and activation, and by working to bring advocacy closer to women, birthing people, and community members. Apologies, my spinning wheel of death. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and see if I can fix that.
Not a worry, that's very status quo for Zoom these days, right?
Gotta love Zoom, just taking its time.
Also, if it doesn't work, I could always try to share my screen too.
Would be super helpful. I think my PowerPoint has decided to.
All right. It's just gonna likewise take me just a minute.
So sorry about this. Maybe in the meantime, everyone or anyone who is called to can drop in the chat kind of different issues or different changes that you all are working to advance in your own work.
That's awesome, Yuki. Thank you very much. It's Crystal. I'm just going to jump in and say hi. And I just dropped a link to the toolkit in as well. And it looks like Nan's already got her screen up.
Amazing, amazing.
But then I went to the wrong. It was telling. Here we go. Is that good?
That is perfect. Awesome. So on the next slide,
Is that the next slide? Oh, it's not showing it?
not yet.
Oh,
Sorry, y'all.
Hey, real quick, I'm in the chat, and Cynthia Levin posted that she works on improving access to COVID vaccines and improve gun violence policies.
Amazing. And I'm seeing that Janet is sharing that they are working for support for Black mothers in Chicago, building communities of love around mothers and mothers to be in neighborhoods where resources are seriously lacking. That is amazing.
It is amazing. Thank you so much for that work, Janet and Cynthia.
What an amazing community to be a part of today.
I'm now seeing a slide that says every mother counts policy priorities.
I'm not seeing.
Okay, I'm
You
gonna
don't see that.
I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna try again then.
I'm also on the cusp of opening it up on my computer. Sorry, you all.
Oh, I think this is just one of those things that happens.
Life right now, Yuki. It's
Yeah.
just
It's
life,
true.
right?
It's true. Zoom is exhausted. We're all exhausted. Amazing. Yes, I am seeing the slide now, Nan. Thank you so much. Awesome. So getting back into it, thank you for your patience. EMC is proud to support ongoing legislative efforts that reflect our priorities and evidence-based solutions through thought partnership and legislative input as aligned with our mission. At EMC, we've identified priority areas for policy change, which include continuous insurance coverage of comprehensive care for birthing and postpartum people, which includes extending postpartum Medicaid to the full year after birth in all states, with adequate funding for states to implement this policy, and making sure that there is that support throughout the postpartum period. I'm seeing Janet is sharing in the chat her own experience during postpartum, and I imagine support is so necessary during that time. Janet, thank you for sharing. Another priority that we have is to expand access to high value evidence-based models of care, like the midwifery model, community-based doula support, and community birth options. And our other priority, among many others, is to ensure that there are systems of accountability for respectful maternity care through policies, be they many, but one example is ensuring that hospitals are prioritizing respectful person-centered care, and also establishing systems to address reports and incidences of mistreatment, disrespect, and discrimination. And on this slide, I've also included some pieces of legislation that at the federal level that Every Mother Counts has supported last year that align with each of these priorities. Next slide, please. Nan, if you don't mind going to the next slide. Thank you. So this year we're continuing to build on our policy and advocacy strategy, as well as advance these policy priorities at the national, state, and local levels. As one of these streams of work, and I think one of the most important ones, is creating opportunities and resources to make sure our community members and advocates themselves can support the movement towards birth justice and improving maternal health by using their own voices and your own voices to push for social change and enacting of these and any policies that you are working towards in your own communities. We're looking to continue to magnify our impact on maternal health by building and supporting advocacy capacity, creating easy ways for people to take action and share resources, and being able to provide knowledge and technical assistance as we can and as is relevant with those who are motivated to advocate for these critical policy solutions in maternal health. Next slide, please. So last fall, we released this advocacy toolkit that Crystal put in the chat, which is a resource for community members to learn more about advocacy and how to get involved while ensuring that advocacy can be effective, actionable, and equitable. Personally, I feel that advocacy can sometimes feel really unclear or overwhelming as to what it is. So we're hoping that this resource can help demystify advocacy and make it feel even more doable. We're hoping that this toolkit can be a tool for you all to start the conversation around maternal health advocacy within your own communities, and really inspire those discussions of how to work towards systems change collectively, and to help advocates like yourselves and those in your communities connect with your personal strengths, with your connection to the movement in order to make change. We see the toolkit as a way of starting these conversations and supporting you all in taking that advocacy even deeper. So today I'm excited finally to go through our breakdown of the who, what, where, when, why, how of advocacy that we go through in the toolkit. And Crystal shared the toolkit in the chat, and it's also on EMC's Take Action page. Next slide, please. So the who is the players. This section of the toolkit helps you to understand and identify your role within advocacy. Are you a storyteller sharing your story in front of a crowd, or are you comfortable on camera? Or maybe you're an investigator ready to plug things in behind the scenes and do the background research that can be so necessary. Or maybe you're a mediator who is comfortable acknowledging different perspectives and can navigate those dynamics to draw people to the community and pull them together. Or are you a connector, already familiar with the field and ready to get started making those connections with leaders and decision makers? Or maybe you're a mobilizer. You can pull together a crowd with ease and bring together a whole group of voices to take collective action. There's really a role for everyone within this movement that can play to your strengths, where you sit in the ecosystem and what you want to do. Next slide, please. And while figuring out your role is important, your who, the who else is equally important. It's so critical to know who else you need to talk to and include, and who else already doing this work, so that you're able to build power through collective efforts and avoid duplicating or reinventing the wheel, and can really tap into that collective power. In this work, especially, when you're thinking about how inequitable the maternity care system is and who's bearing the brunt of the impact of disparities in outcomes and experiences, it's so important to consider your own power, your privilege, and your identity, especially when you're trying to determine the representation and diversity of your allies, who's in leadership and who's in public facing positions, and how these decisions are made. And so I'd love to add that to ensure your advocacy is equitable and inclusive, it's so important to be able to include, center, and uplift community members, especially those who have lived experience with the issue, have been historically marginalized or left out of decision making. In centering equity and inclusion in your advocacy, and demonstrating your real commitment to equity and justice throughout the process, it will so help ensure that your efforts continue to move the needle forward and are much stronger and more effective in the long run. And so once you're able to form a group, this coalition that feels good, that feels representative and collaborative, you can start to work together to answer some questions like, what are everyone's strengths? What motivates your group? What does the group share in common? And for all the participants that you have, you can figure out kind of what connections and influences they might have, what expertise you have, what skills you have, and also where you need support and more representation and more strengths to bring in. And so with these answers to these questions, you can maximize your effort and highlight what everyone brings to the table. And I just want to also acknowledge that coalition building and collaboration isn't always easy. So it's always helpful to have people involved as early as possible, to be transparent and make sure everyone feels as though they have a stake in the work. And this relationship and trust building will be so essential to make sure your group is strong, cohesive, equitable, and can work through the tough things that will eventually come up. Next slide, please. Thank you. So next up is your what. The what is the change. What change do you want to see? What are the answers that already exist in your own community? Out of many pathways to change, we see a few key ways to make change that our maternity care system needs. These include, but are definitely not limited to, 1, raising awareness by changing attitudes and beliefs through education and training, sharing resources to build understanding and increasing political will. 2, influencing providers and facilities by changing behaviors and practices in healthcare settings, collaborating with educational institutions to change trainings and education, and hold hospitals accountable for the highest standard of care. 3 is changing policy, which can look like passing legislation, influencing hospital policies and practices, or bringing community voices into decision-making and policy reform. And last but definitely not least, building community by bringing people together with similar experiences, harnessing that community power, and sharing experiences, resources, and actions among peers and among community members. But I think what's most important is that the best what for you depends on where you live. The challenges that birthing people are facing in your community is what you believe needs to be done and where you add the most value. Advocacy can be really hard and feel really hard, and it's usually, unfortunately, going to take a long time. So if you don't really feel passionate about the goal, it's hard to sustain that effort, and you could even potentially lose momentum or even burn out if you're not doing the work that excites you and not taking care of yourself along the way. So in order to suss out what your what might include, some questions you can think about are: what is the severity of the problems or the challenges in your community? How great is the need for different changes? How likely is it for your efforts to be successful? What impact will your initiative or change have? And what do you feel most passionate about? Next slide, please. Our where is the target. Who are the key decision makers for your issue? Where are the decisions relevant to your issue being made? It's so important in making change that you are able to target your energy towards the right groups and decision makers who hold the power to make your advocacy the most successful, as well as considering who holds the power to influence and pressure your decision makers. These decision makers can be payers or insurance companies, hospital administration, nursing staff, community, legislatures, government agencies, academic institutions, and professional associations. And these decision makers can be at the local, the state, the federal, or even the global level, depending on the scope of what you're trying to do. And so once you have a sense of who the players are, it might be helpful to also map out the decision makers. And we have a template in the toolkit, and mapping out those decision makers who are related to your issue that you're advocating for, based on their power and potential influence over your issue, their support for your cause, and your group's relationships with any decision makers. You can then strategically focus your energy on those decision makers who will help you be the most successful at making progress. And then when is the window of opportunity, finding the best strategic moment for your advocacy action, when you'll have the biggest impact, and what opportunities are there already to bring people together that you can build off of. This can look like a moment when people are already gathered together, a moment with a lot of media attention like Mother's Day, or when key decisions are being made like around an election or a legislative session. Other possible windows of opportunity include Mom Congress, a rally or a march, actions hosted by other groups with aligned goals, an important or related vote, a moment of media attention like the release of a film or a report, conventions, convenings, and other important member meetings. Another plug for Mom Congress 2022. Also on this topic, I want to mention that when planning these events or these actions, it's also critical to make sure these events and moments are as inclusive and welcoming as possible for all members of communities, especially those most impacted by the issue. This can look like taking into account school times and childcare for parents, the work week, and ensuring that you share details about the accessibility of your event ahead of time as much as possible, such as wheelchair accessibility of the space, bathroom options, transportation options, and parking, and languages available, so that you can make sure that you're welcoming in as many people as possible. Next slide. Thank you. The next on this journey is finding out your why, your motivation, which I know each person on this call has their own why. That's so powerful in your own right. And I know a couple of folks have already shared their why in the chat, but if anyone else is called to, I welcome you to drop in the chat a few words about your own motivation that you bring to this work. But to be successful at creating a change, you have to be able to not just explain the why, but you also have to be able to persuade other people to act, to put their energy, their resources, their political capital into what you're asking of them, and having a really strong motivation that aligns with theirs can be so powerful in doing that. So in this section of the toolkit, we guide you through articulating your why and finding ways to make sure your messaging aligns with the motivation of the decision makers that you're trying to reach. It's all about matching up your motivation, your elevator pitch, and framing it in ways that will catch the attention of whatever decision maker you're trying to talk to. And then based on your audience, different messages and framings might be more resonant or more effective. These could look like focusing on health outcomes, or having satisfied consumers of the healthcare system, achieving cost savings, or the amount that it is easy or seamless for providers, achieving quality measures and benchmarks, advancing health equity, human rights, gender equity, or social justice. And so in order to help identify what most resonate with your decision maker, it might be helpful to ask yourself the questions: what goals do you share with your decision maker? What motivates your advocacy target, this person you're trying to convince? What incentivizes them to achieve your shared goals? And what mode of communication do they best respond to? Are they going to listen more to a tweet or to a personal phone call and meeting? And so once you have the answers to these questions, you can then use these to frame and shape how you build your elevator pitch to cater to the person you're talking to and get the decisions you're looking for. Next slide. And then on the topic of why, I wanted to highlight this case study that we include in the toolkit on how to frame your argument for different audiences and what it really looks like to develop these different messaging tactics. For example, if you're trying to advocate for increased doula support as a strategy that can decrease medically unnecessary cesarean births, there are several different ways to frame your argument based on who you're talking to and who holds the power to make a decision on your issue and what they care most about. So just to run through a few of these examples, for payers like private insurance and Medicaid, who might be most interested in cost savings, it might be helpful to share that doula care is cost effective and that by reducing unnecessary medical procedures, they can help with cost savings, especially when you're considering that cesarean births can cost 50% more than vaginal births. For providers, hospitals, and provider professional associations, they might be more focused on meeting quality improvement benchmarks. So it might be helpful to share that reducing high rates of cesarean births is a key quality goal for many hospitals and a quality improvement benchmark, and that doula care has been found to reduce the rate of medically unnecessary cesarean births. And so you can really get into the practice of trying to figure out what the interests of your target audience is and finding the argument that would resonate most with them. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then lastly, and probably very important, is our how, which is your advocacy plan. How can you go from all of this incredible work, strategizing and reflecting on your motivation, on the change you want to make, and on your own position, and turn that reflection into action? And so what are possible action steps, like hosting a film screening, giving testimony at a legislative hearing, or story banking that you can take on? To get back to our different pathways to change that we mentioned in the what, some action steps might include to raise awareness. You can create an op-ed about the maternal health issues in your community, or use social media to share information, resources, and actions. To influence providers, you can work to create community-led boards in hospitals, use apps like Earth, Yelp, and others to share your experiences with providers and hospitals, or provide input on continuing provider education, on hearing from birthing people and parents directly. To change policy, you can meet with your policymakers about specific policy issues, attend town halls, and share your experience in maternal health task forces or perinatal quality collaboratives. And to build community, you can start a Facebook group for people with similar experiences, or plan a listening session to share stories, or work on a participatory research study on maternal health in your community. And I share all of these different pathways to change to inspire that advocacy can look so much more than just talking to a politician, and there's so many ways to make change. And so once you have your action steps, you can plan out, if you're working with a group or a coalition, how will your work be shared? How will decisions be made? How will you take care of each other in this work? Because taking care of each other, especially as this work can be heavy and even potentially dig up past traumas and experiences, it's so important to think through how you can stay motivated and take care of yourself and stay in it for the long haul. Because as we know, with any kind of social change, it's certainly a marathon and not a sprint. So build community as you can, celebrate your wins, no matter how small they are. Show up as you are and bring joy and fun into the work you do, like food, dance, song, art. Just bring it into and infuse it into your advocacy. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Mandy, in the chat. And I think it's so wonderful that you've been able to channel your experience into advocacy and to making change. So thank you. And so once you have your plan together, we wanted to make sure that our toolkit possesses tools that are actually tangible. So we were able to develop your toolbox to make sure you have all the resources you need to get started on your journey. We've put together some advocacy worksheets to guide you through this journey, as well as some ways to get data and resources to help inform your advocacy efforts and support you with an evidence base to go off of, and to hopefully better understand the state of maternal health where you live. So on the next slide, one of these resources is on the EMC website. I'll just share here. We have one of our own maternal health map, which breaks down key maternal health indicators that we've gathered from reliable sources that we trust, state by state, to help you get started on understanding how your state compares to others when it comes to key maternal health measures like pregnancy-related mortality and disparities, percent of births financed by Medicaid, whether your state requires maternal health data to be stratified by race. We've been able to pull those for each of the states and share them in hopefully a helpful way. And then on the next slide, to just take a little bit deeper dive into our worksheets, the first is building your advocacy plan, which is a worksheet that helps you work through all the questions that were included throughout this presentation and the toolkit, breaking down your who, your what, your where, your when, your why, and your how, by thinking through each of the questions that can help you uncover and reflect how your advocacy can be shaped by the players, the change, the target, the window of opportunity, the motivation, and your plan that you feel most called to. On the next slide. The next worksheet is helping you to write your elevator pitch. This is a brief background and call to action for when you need to speak to the issue with a decision maker clearly and in a short amount of time. So it can be helpful to prepare your talking points in advance so that you have them ready to go. Your elevator pitch should start with the need for change. Why is change needed in your community? What's the data? What's the evidence? Which can be tailored to the messaging that your decision maker would resonate with the most. Then make it personal. Share your story, your motivation, and your vision for maternal health. All of these powerful stories that you all are sharing in the chat. Why is maternal health important to you? What expertise does your lived experience and your role in your community bring to this issue? And then add your elevator pitch with an ask. What do you want your decision maker to do? and be really clear about what exactly you want them to do, especially considering how busy and inundated policymakers tend to be. And then I just want to also remind everyone that your policymakers and their staff and anyone you're talking to are just regular people like you who care about your community, and their job is ultimately to listen to you and what you're advocating for. So be sure to speak from your heart and trust yourself. You're the expert in your own experience, for sure. On the next slide, talking through sharing your story, which I know I think Tomika will be doing a webinar on this, just to do a little plug there. But I know that you all have been working on this already, but we wanted to provide some writing prompts on sharing your maternal health story, because as Nan mentioned before, we believe that advocacy is the most powerful when it centers the voices of those who've been affected and impacted by the issue. And your voice and your lived experience can shed light on what birthing people are facing where you're living, and help bring to life the impact of whatever policy change you're pushing for. And sharing a story can be such an effective way to help others understand and listen to the issue on a deeper, more personal level than just throwing a bunch of statistics at them. And sharing your story is brave, and it can take time for you to craft the best way that you feel comfortable talking about your experience and how it connects to the big issues in maternal health and maternal mental health. And so I just want to affirm that you all get to be patient with yourself and what this looks like, and you get to share as much or as little as you'd personally like. And so this worksheet just takes you step by step to map out, starting to think about your stories and starting to give shape to your experience. And then our last worksheet is finding key maternal health statistics to better understand the state of maternal health in your community. We've lined out a few data points that we always find it helpful to use and have in our back pocket, as well as some resources and websites, as you can see on the slide, where you can go to find this data. You can fill out for where you live, maternal mortality rate and ratios, the rate of preterm birth, the rate of cesarean birth and vaginal birth after cesarean, the distribution of providers and maternity care deserts, and the percent of births financed by different payers. And then we hope that this can be a bank for you to work off of to complement your personal experiences and stories with a few of these key statistics that are most relevant to make your advocacy both memorable and powerful, and really hopefully connect your personal experience to broader issues and systemic changes that need to be made. Next slide. And then I'll just share, after I take a sip of water, that we recognize that this toolkit is a very general overview of what advocacy is. And so we're excited to follow up the Advocacy Toolkit with policy-specific modules that will hopefully make taking action for specific maternal health policies even easier and more supported. We're hoping that these modules will include actionable resources, sample legislation, and sample victories from across the country. Sorry, another sip. Example messaging and letters to the editor, and evidence and research focused on policy priorities, such as midwifery care, doula support, and respectful maternity care. And we're hoping to get started working on these and sharing them out this year. So be sure, just a little plug, to follow EMC on social media and subscribe to our newsletter to get the latest updates on these modules. And next slide, please. And I would love to hear how you all feel this toolkit will be supportive and to your own already incredible advocacy for maternal health, maternal mental health, birth equity, and all of the other incredible change areas that you mentioned in the chat. So if you, and we want this tool to be as useful to you all as possible. So if you feel inspired to drop in the chat how you can see using this toolkit or sharing this toolkit to help advance your own advocacy, I would love to see that. But really, we hope this toolkit can not only guide and shape your own work, but inspire others to join you, as well as reinforce and spark reflections and questions for the work you're already doing, so that together we can work towards quality, respectful, and equitable maternity care for all. And while you might already be doing this work, we're taking into account all of these questions. I hope this framework is helpful in re-inspiring yourself or congratulating yourself on the thoughtfulness you're bringing into this work already. And that it's a toolkit that can help bring even more community members, peers, allies into your work. Cynthia is excited about the workbook part. I'm hoping that can be a very practical tool to start thinking through and talking through your own questions and your own reflections. Jennifer mentioned that having statistics in your areas can be helpful just to have in your back pocket. I'm so excited to hear that those resonate. Nan, if you could go to the next slide. So we hope this advocacy toolkit can start the conversation of how to engage in systems change and advocacy for maternal health and birth equity. We recognize that change takes time, but we really need all of our voices to make progress possible. So we're excited to provide this as a resource as one of those first steps. Next slide, please. So thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be in this group today, and I'm excited to dig into this chat as well. Please reach out if you're ever interested in continuing this conversation, and please do check out the toolkit. I would love to hear your thoughts. And I'll hand it over to Crystal for some Q&A.
Hi, Yuki. Thank you so much for that amazing, inspiring presentation. I was just reading the chat here as you were calling people, for people to share, and I'm looking through it. One of the things that struck me that Becky also mentioned was organizing thoughts when you reach out. You know, it almost reminded me of some of those fantastic notebook prompts. You know, how's my day gonna go? What am I grateful for? What do I need to follow up on? So just such a fantastically inspiring way of putting forth the information, and excited to hear that there's plans for growth and continuing to invest in the toolkit. So that's very exciting. Let's see, let me pull down here. Cynthia's mentioned she likes the workbook part. So Cynthia's mentioned working on letters to the editor. Cynthia, I love that. That's such a fantastic advocacy tool. That it sounds like you've already been well on your way doing that. Would love to hear more about your work with letters to the editor, maybe inspiring some other advocate writers that are here in the group. Yuki, I just wanted to say something that I noticed when we were presenting that Tamika and I talk about a lot, and it's hard to put into words, but I think a lot of people got to see it in action today. And I think it's something that's really special that Mom Congress, Every Mother Counts, 2020 Mom, you know, these organizations share reaching out to others. And when it comes to advocacy, we really are a team, and not just the organizations, but individuals. And everybody jumps up to help each other at all, you know, whether it's in a meeting or sharing a story or trying to shape up a big ask. And I thought it was really awesome to see that in action today. Like, okay, we're just going to switch slides around. We're just going to get it done, because that's what we do. We just get in here and we get it done. And I think it's so inspiring to see that and see it in action, and want to thank you and Every Mother Counts and Nan for the way that you articulate and bring up others to the work, talking specifically about lifting others up. And it's so fantastic that we get access to your toolkit to inspire others to see how they can use their unique voices. Does anyone else have questions or thoughts about the toolkit? I'm just going to read Cynthia's note here real quick. Yuki, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, and I just want to echo everything you said, Crystal. I think that like relationship building and community building is such an important part of the work too. I think we don't always see it as being advocates and that as part of our advocacy, but being able to like get to know each other and be able to work together in a way that feels good and that moves work forward is such an important first step.
Yeah, thank you so much. I want to share what Cynthia shared, and I have one more thought before we close out. And if anybody has a last minute question, please go ahead and drop in. Cynthia says writing letters to the local paper because they have fewer people writing and can publish more from local writers. I love that idea. Love local publications for all that they do for communities, but fantastic way to get started. That's right, get your name out there locally. The last thought that I wanted to share, I'm going to put a link in the chat for the webinar that you so kindly mentioned. If you all were inspired by Tamika, which I know that I am every time I get to chat with her, she's going to help us and some other Mom Congress members lead a webinar on February the 23rd. So that's 2 weeks from today on the Wednesday, same time. I'm dropping the link in here. Those of you that are here may very well be farther along in your advocacy journey and being prepared. But there may be somebody you know that you say like, oh my gosh, Yuki mentioned someone that should engage with doctors and hospitals or something along those lines. And I know that person. If you want to invite them to be inspired, we would love for you to go ahead and pass along that link. They can either join us live or watch the recording on the Mom Congress website. And to that end, yes, Cynthia, I'll answer your question and ask for my colleague Cindy to flip to our very last slide for the day, where I will say, one more big thank you to Every Mother Counts, to Nan and to Yuki, and for the grace that you all have shown us. The last couple of weeks have been busy time, and I'm so thankful that we all got to come together today again, and we look forward to seeing anyone who's able to join us in Washington, D.C. this May. So we will be gathering for the Mom Congress 2022 event in person. The details should be up on our website later today, I believe, if you want to go ahead and grab your seat. So you all are the first to hear the official, but we will be gathering in DC for our 3 days again. So Sunday, May 15th through late in the day, Tuesday, May 17th. You can always email questions to me. I will put my email in the chat, crystal@mom-congress.com. There it is. We look forward to helping to connect you, hopefully seeing you in person. And thank you again, Nan and Yuki, for your time today. Tamika, thank you as well. It's great to see everyone and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.